So I'm an artist. I paint, I draw, and I thought it would be really cool to start a series where I just explain my thought process behind some of my paintings. So what you're looking at right now are some of the progress photos of my now complete painting that I call Light of the Virtuous Wife. It's 2 feet tall, 3 feet wide, and it is oil on canvas. So I wanted to make this one about the trap that a lot of women fall into in trying to fill this role that's force-fed to them through the media, biblical conservatism, different misogynistic influences, and just how our world is constantly objectifying women's bodies, our interests and insecurities for the sake of control and profit. Specifically, starting with this figure, we have a woman on her knees, physically deserted, and she has her head down, showing us her halo, which is meant to represent her perceived innocence, virtuity, and she has her hands raised to us, and we, the viewer, are kind of standing in for the person or people that control her. I was kind of envisioning us as like a husband or a male figure to whom she is subservient. In one hand, she is giving us her heart and financial stability, and with the other, she relinquishes her creative passions. Despite that, she still obviously carries the weight, beauty, and power of the entire sky. Next to her, you'll see a mask, which is representing this front that women are taught to put on, and it's almost as if, as a woman, you're assigned this mask at birth in order to conceal your true identity, stifle your voice, hide your emotions, oftentimes with the intention of appeasing the male gaze, hence the hearts and the red lipstick. Next, you're gonna see a bug, which I kind of shittily based off of this picture of a gold digger wasp, which simply represents this perception that deluded alpha males harbor, where they seem to think all women care about is finding a high-value male to take care of them, and so they can spend all their money, which is kind of why the wasp is looking at the viewer instead of the woman, because it's not really something a woman has control over, and it's more of a reflection of the man's insecurities. Veering to the right, there is an hourglass, which represents a sort of half-life of women's worth in our society, where youth and beauty is coveted more than age and wisdom, and just how that sentiment seems to affect women more than men. There's this constant insinuation in media that once a woman gets to a certain age, they're no longer aesthetically pleasing enough to be seen. Just take a look at the countless instances in movies in which a 50-year-old gremlin man is portrayed in a relationship with a literal 25-year-old Victoria's Secret model as evidence of that. Now, above that, there's this portal that is meant to reveal a red flag, warning us that the real world often doesn't have our best interest in mind as women. And once exposed to the daylight, how apparent that fact really becomes. And finally, we have these cracked eggs, which at face value represent the expectations of women to stay in the kitchen, cook breakfast for their husbands and children. But I also had in mind an alternate meaning where they kind of represent the cracks in her psyche, exposing her rawness, her vulnerability. So that concludes the explanation of my painting. You know, I often find myself struggling to verbalize some of the ideas that I have in my head. So I hope that all made sense to everybody who is watching this, and I hope you enjoyed.